Hello and welcome. So today we're diving into something that's, well, absolutely fundamental to India's entire growth story. We're talking about rural development. And let me tell you, this is so much more than just an economic concept. It's really the blueprint for the nation's future. All right, let's get right into it.
Think about this question for a second. Why is the fate of a nation with 1.4 billion people so deeply tied to its villages? This question really gets to the very heart of India's economic story. The simple truth is, until our villages truly prosper, you can't really say the nation as a whole is progressing. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the answer, looking at the big challenges, the strategies, and what the future holds for rural India.
So, why does it matter so much? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward. It's all about the demographics. I mean, even today, almost 2/3 of India's population lives in rural areas. And for a huge chunk of the workforce, farming is still the main way they make a living. But here's the catch, the big economic paradox. Even though most people depend on agriculture, its contribution to the national GDP is, well, it's way lower than you'd expect. So bridging that gap, that's precisely why we say rural development is national development. They're one and the same.
Okay, so it's really important to get this straight. When we talk about rural development, we're not just talking about agricultural development. Nope. It's a much, much bigger idea. It's multidimensional. What does that mean? It means we're looking at social upliftment, things like better schools, sanitation, healthcare. And at the same time, economic upliftment, creating all sorts of jobs and opportunities that go beyond the farm. The end game here is inclusive national growth, where everyone gets a piece of the pie.
Now, imagine being a farmer. Since independence, they've been stuck in this complicated maze. And this maze has two huge foundational challenges. First, getting access to affordable credit, money. And second, finding good ways to actually sell what they grow. So let's try and unpack these two big bottlenecks because they're the very things that have historically kept so many farmers trapped in a cycle of poverty.
So, what exactly is rural credit? Simply put, it's the money a farmer needs to get things done. Everything from buying seeds and fertilizers to investing in a new tractor. But historically, where did this money come from? Mostly from informal sources, like the local moneylender. And let me tell you, that system was just filled with exploitation. We're talking crazy high interest rates, fudged count books. It was a system designed to trap farmers in a never-ending cycle of debt. And this lays it out perfectly. You've got the two systems side by side. On the left, you see the informal system, the one with the moneylenders and the debt traps. But on the right, you have the formal institutional system. This is where you find big players like NABARD, which stands for the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. It was set up back in 1982 to try and fix this whole mess. You also have commercial banks, and, this is a big one, the whole microfinance movement powered by self-help groups, or SHGs. These groups have been an absolute game changer, especially for empowering rural women financially.
Now get ready for this number because it is absolutely staggering. More than 10%. Over 10% of all farm produce in India is wasted every single year. Just think about that. It's not just food that's being thrown away. It's a direct, devastating hit to a farmer's income. And why does this happen? Mostly because of a lack of proper storage and, you guessed it, broken links to the market. This one number just shows you the massive scale of the marketing problem we're dealing with.
So how do you even begin to fix a problem that big? Well, the government came up with a 4-part strategy. First step, regulate the markets, just to make things fair and transparent. Second, build the stuff that's needed. Better roads, warehouses, cold storage facilities. Third, push for cooperative marketing, where farmers team up. A classic example of this working is Operation Flood, the milk cooperative movement that was a huge success. And fourth, use policy tools. This is where you hear about things like MSP, the minimum support price, which basically sets a safety net for prices, and the PDS, or public distribution system, to handle all the food. Okay, but here's the thing. Even if you fix credit and you fix marketing, that's still not enough to guarantee long-term prosperity in rural areas. There's another huge piece to this puzzle, and that's diversification. What's that? It's basically about creating new, stable ways to earn a living that aren't just about growing the traditional crops. Let's take a look at how this helps build a much stronger, more resilient rural economy. The whole idea here is pretty simple. It's about managing risk. Think about it. Relying only on farming is super risky, right? You've got unpredictable monsoons, pests that can wipe out a crop, and prices that go up and down like crazy. So by diversifying, by getting into other related activities, you reduce that dependency. It gives rural families a more stable, year-round income and acts like a financial cushion when, things go wrong with the harvest.
And take a look at this chart. Now, the data's from 2012, but it gives us a really clear picture of the livestock sector, a huge area for diversification. What's the first thing that jumps out at you? Poultry. It makes up a whopping 58% of the livestock sector. That just goes to show you how incredibly important chicken farming is as a source of income in rural India. So where are these diversification opportunities? Well, first up is animal husbandry. We already mentioned Operation Flood, also called the White Revolution, which made India a top milk producer in the world. Then you've got fisheries, absolutely essential for coastal communities. Third is horticulture. Did you know India is a world leader in fruits like mangoes and bananas? And looking forward, you've got completely new avenues opening up. Things like information technology are starting to create really important non-farm jobs right there in the villages. And an image like this just says it all, doesn't it? It really captures the spirit of animal husbandry. It might be a very traditional way of life, but it is still so important as another source of income. For millions of small farmers, their livestock is basically their insurance policy. It's that crucial financial safety net when the crops fail or during the off-season. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the future of farming. For a long time, we've been dealing with the environmental fallout from the Green Revolution, but now there's a new path emerging. It's a path that could not only boost a farmer's income, but also protect our health and the planet. And that path, as you might have guessed, is organic farming. And the difference between the two is it's night and day. On one hand, you have conventional farming. It's all about chemical fertilizers, toxic pesticides, things that we now know damage the soil and pollute our water. But on the other hand, you have organic farming. It's an eco-friendly approach that tries to work with nature, not against it. The result? Healthier, pesticide-free food and, crucially, healthier soil for the long run. It's a real move towards sustainability. So why do we call organic farming a win-win? Well, it's actually more like a win-win-win-win. First win, consumers get healthier, chemical-free food. Second win, farmers can often earn more money because both here and abroad, people want to buy organic. Third win, it usually requires more manual labor, which means more jobs in rural areas. And the fourth, and maybe biggest win, it's sustainable for the environment. It protects our land and water for the future. This quote is incredible. It really shows you how much resistance there was at the beginning. Do you want India to go naked? That's what the director of the Central Institute for Cotton Research said back in 1995. And who was he saying it to? To an organic farming pioneer named Kisan Mehta, who just suggested growing cotton without chemicals. The mindset back then was that you absolutely needed chemicals for a good harvest. But now, thousands of farmers are doing it successfully. It just shows you what a massive mental shift has happened. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What are the big takeaways here? Let's pull everything together and look at what it really takes to transform rural India. When you boil it all down, the blueprint for rural development really stands on four main pillars. First, you've got to fix the foundation. That means sorting out those deep-rooted problems of credit and marketing. Second, you need a smart strategy, which is all about diversification to make incomes more stable. Third, you have to think about the future, and that means embracing sustainable things like organic farming. And finally, the fourth pillar, the enablers. You have to keep investing in infrastructure and, just as importantly, in people. And to wrap things up, I want to leave you with a couple of questions to really chew on, especially if you're preparing for the UPSC mains. First one, is diversification by itself enough to solve the problem of agrarian distress in India? I want you to think critically about that. And the second question, how could we realistically scale up the self-help group models so that it completely replaces those informal moneylenders? What are the biggest hurdles we'd face? Really give those some thought. Thanks so much for joining me.